Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive on Kihon and karate. So you're here because you really want to understand Kihon, right?
Well, we've been digging into some really cool sources, and let me tell you, there's so much more to Kihon than just basic punches and kicks. We're talking about the mental side, even a bit of a spiritual side.
It's true. And it's funny how Kihon, which basically means the root or the foundation, it's sometimes seen as just the basic stuff, but it really is like the core of everything in higher level karate.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I came across this quote from a karate master, Kanazawa Hirokazu. He said, Kihon is the essence of karate. It forms the basis of all advanced techniques and applications.
Mm.
And that really hit me like, that's the heart of it.
It is powerful because it's a reminder that Kihon isn't just like going through the motions. It's about understanding the core principles behind every single technique. It's like you're building a house, you need that strong foundation, right? Everything else has to be built on top of that. Okay, so let's get into the benefits. One thing that really stood out to me is how Kihon gives you such a solid technical foundation. It's like you're building blocks for those more advanced moves.
Exactly. And with all the practice, the repetition, you develop muscle memory, which means better coordination, balance, and strength.
Right, it all starts to connect. So repetition is key here, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That repetition is what refines your movements, makes them more precise, more efficient. It's like, think of a musician. They practice their scales over and over to build that foundation so they can play more complex pieces.
I see the connection. And this precision you get from Kihon, that ties directly into Kata and Kumite.
Yes, definitely.
Can you tell us a bit more about that connection?
Sure. So let's take the front stance, for example, Zenkutsudachi. It's a fundamental stance you practice in Kihon, but it's also essential for so many techniques in Kata. Like, think about the rising block or the front kick. You need that stance to give you stability and balance, to execute those moves with power and precision.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just isolated movements in Kihon. You're building the skills you need to use those movements in more complex situations, like in Kata.
Exactly.
And what about Kumite?
Well, in Kumite, which is sparring, that strong foundation you build through Kihon, that's what helps you react quickly and efficiently.
So Kihon is preparing you for those real-time combat situations,
Yes.
reading through all the material. One thing I was wondering about is, are there any downsides to Kihon? Some people say it can get a bit repetitive.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The repetition can be a challenge. But it's really important to approach Kihon with the right mindset. It's not just about mindlessly doing the movements over and over. It's about focusing on improving each time, paying attention to the details.
So how do you keep Kihon engaging then?
Well, one way is to really try to understand the purpose behind each technique.
Mhm.
Like, why is this block performed this way? What are the variations, the applications? By asking those questions, you engage your mind more, and you approach Kihon with a deeper level of intention.
So it's not just physical repetition, it's mental engagement too.
Precisely. It's about training both the body and the mind.
I like that. Another concern I saw was that maybe if you focus too much on these preset Kihon techniques, it might make you less adaptable in a real-life situation. Like, what if you need to think on your feet?
Yeah, that's a good point. And it highlights the importance of finding ways to apply Kihon principles in different contexts. For example, understanding the biomechanics of a punch. That's something you really refine in Kihon. But then you can use that understanding to adapt that punch to different angles, different situations.
So you're taking those core principles and learning to apply them more broadly.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And that brings us to this idea of effective application, really unlocking the full potential of Kihon. I was fascinated by this idea of using biomechanics to make your Kihon even more effective. Can you talk more about that?
Of course. So biomechanics is all about understanding how the body moves, how it generates force. When we talk about Kihon, it means analyzing each technique to figure out how to make it as efficient and powerful as possible.
It's like having a secret weapon. You're not just throwing a punch, you understand the science behind it.
Right. It makes a huge difference. Let's take a simple front punch, for example. If you understand the optimal angle for your fist, the role of your core muscles, how your weight shifts, you can generate way more force. And not only that, but you're also less likely to injure yourself.
So it's both more powerful and safer.
Exactly.
That's incredible. I also came across this concept of visualization and Kaim.
Yes.
What can you tell us about those?
Well, visualization and Kaim are all about connecting your mind and body. Visualization is about creating a clear mental picture in your mind of what you want the technique to achieve, the outcome. And Kaim is about focusing all your energy at that point of impact.
So it's not just physical strength, it's mental focus too.
Exactly. You're adding another dimension to the technique. You're not just going through the motion, you're putting your intention behind it.
It's like bringing more awareness to the technique.
Yes, exactly.
I can see how that would make a huge difference.
It does. And that mental focus, it also helps you internalize the movements, so they become more instinctive over time. It's fascinating how the mental and physical aspects work together in Kihon.
Yeah, it really is. Speaking of working together, I also read about practicing Kihon solo, which is Tandoku, and with a partner, which is Sotai. What are the benefits of each?
Well, Tandoku allows you to really focus on your own technique, to refine all the details. It's like a musician practicing their instrument alone before they play with an orchestra. Sotai, on the other hand, that introduces the element of resistance. So you can actually feel how your techniques work against an opponent.
So you take what you learn in solo practice and then apply it in a more interactive setting.
Exactly.
It makes sense that both types of practice are important.
They complement each other. Kandoku builds the foundation, and Sotai helps you test and refine those skills.
And of course, we can't talk about Kihon without talking about Ki. What role does Ki play in all of this?
Ki. That life force, that energy that flows within us, it's really an integral part of karate. And Kihon is where you start to understand and cultivate Ki.
That's interesting. How does Kihon help you cultivate Ki?
Well, through the focused repetition of Kihon, you develop a much deeper awareness of your body and its energy. It's about learning to connect your breath, your movements, and your mental focus, to channel that energy.
So it's more than just physical strength. It's about tapping into something deeper.
Exactly. It's about aligning your physical and mental energy to create a much more powerful and impactful technique. It's a gradual process. But through consistent Kihon practice, you start to understand how to harness that energy.
Wow, that's amazing. It all comes back to how the mental and physical are so connected in Kihon.
Absolutely. It's like a dance between the two. And that actually brings us to this beautiful concept of Shingitai.
I'm so ready to dive into Shingitai, but I think we'll save that for part 2 of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
So Shingitai, it's a really interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely intriguing. Can you explain it a bit more for those who might not know?
Sure. So Shingitai, it's written with 3 Japanese characters. And it represents the 3 elements that are super important for mastery in karate. Those are spirit, technique, and body. In Japanese, those are Shin, Ji, and Tai. And it basically emphasizes how connected these elements are. It's saying that true strength comes from developing all 3 together in harmony.
It reminds me of that saying, a healthy mind and a healthy body, but Shingitai takes it even further by adding that element of skill.
Exactly. It's not enough to just be physically strong or mentally focused. You also need the skills, the technique, to be able to apply that strength and focus. And Kihon is where you cultivate all 3.
Can you give an example of how Kihon embodies Shingitai?
Yeah, for sure. Let's think about the basic reverse punch, Gyakuzuki. Physically, you're building strength and coordination just by doing the movement over and over. Technically, you're refining the angle of your fists, the rotation of your hips, how you extend your arm, all those details that make the punch really effective. And mentally, you're working on focus, intention, and being able to channel your energy, your kiya, into that punch.
So it's not just throwing a punch, it's engaging your whole self, spirit, technique, body.
Exactly. That's what makes Kihon so powerful as a training tool. It's not just about learning how to punch or block. It's also about developing your character, your discipline, your inner strength.
It's making me think about how this idea goes beyond just karate. It seems like Shingitai could be valuable for anything you want to get good at, whether it's playing music, writing a book, even starting a business.
I totally agree. Imagine playing the piano. You need the physical control to play the keys, right? That's the body part. Then you need to understand music theory, technique. That's the technique. And then you also need the passion, the dedication to practice. That's the spirit. Without all 3, you're not going to reach that level of mastery.
That's a great example. It really shows how Shingitai can be applied in different areas. It's about that well-rounded development, bringing together mind, body, and skill.
That's it. And I think that's one of the most important things we can take away from this deep dive into Kihon. It's not just about martial arts. It's a whole philosophy of learning and self-improvement.
That's inspiring. But, if I'm being honest, when I first started reading about Kihon, I thought, wow, all this repetition, won't that get boring or even discouraging?
I get that. It's a natural thought. Repetition can be tough. But it's so important to remember that mastery takes time and dedication. And the rewards are worth it, believe me.
So for someone who's struggling with that repetitive aspect of Kihon, what advice would you give them?
I'd say focus on the small wins. Notice those little improvements you make each time you practice. Maybe your stance feels more stable, or your punch is a bit sharper. Celebrate those small wins and use them to keep you going.
That's good advice. It's about shifting your perspective, finding the joy in the process, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And remember, even the most amazing karate masters, they all started with the basics. They spent hours and hours honing their Kihon, embracing that repetition as the way to get to mastery.
It's encouraging to know that even the greats went through the same thing. It makes those Kihon techniques, which can seem so simple, it makes them seem a lot more profound.
They are profound because they're the foundation for something much bigger, not just in terms of physical skill, but also for building character and discovering yourself.
It's amazing how something that looks basic on the surface can actually have so much depth and complexity.
You know, it's like a hidden gem. The more you explore Kihon, the more you uncover its richness and potential.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, for sure. We started with the practical benefits of Kihon and ended up exploring these really deep ideas about mastery and self-cultivation. And it all came from that initial curiosity you had about Kihon. It's incredible how exploring something seemingly simple can lead to such profound insights.
It shows the power of being curious and how learning is a lifelong journey. There's always something new to discover, even in things we think we already know.
I'm really glad we went on this deep dive together. It's given me a whole new appreciation for Kihon and the whole art of karate.
Me too. It's been a fascinating journey.
And for those listening, I hope this has sparked your own curiosity about Kihon and the world of martial arts in general. But as we wrap up this part, I want to leave you with a question to think about.
Ooh, I like where this is going. What is it?
Think about what you're passionate about, your own goals, what you want to achieve. It could be anything, like playing an instrument, writing code, cooking, whatever you love.
A great chat.
Now, think about how you could apply the concept of Shingitai to that passion. How can you cultivate your spirit, your passion, your dedication, your resilience? How can you refine your technique, the specific skills you need to master it? And how can you take care of your body, both physically and mentally, to support yourself on that journey?
It's about bringing that holistic mindset to what you love, realizing that true mastery comes from developing every aspect of yourself.
Exactly. And by embracing the ideas of Shingitai, you might not only become more masterful in what you're passionate about, but you might also find a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment along the way.
It's like we're taking the dedication and intention of Kihon and applying it to life itself.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Kihon. We hope you've learned some valuable things and that you're feeling inspired to keep learning and growing.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep. That's all for today. We'll see you on our next deep dive. You know, it's funny how we started with this idea of Kihon, which seems pretty straightforward, right? And we ended up going so deep into these ideas about mastery and self-improvement.
It's true. It just shows you that even in the simplest things, there's often a whole world of knowledge hidden beneath the surface.
And that the journey of learning, the process, that's just as important as actually reaching the goal.
Oh, totally. It's all about embracing the whole process, the ups and downs, and that constant learning that comes with trying to master something.
I'm really glad we did this deep dive together. It's honestly changed the way I think about learning, not just in karate, but in life too.
Me too. It's been such a fascinating exploration.
So as we wrap up our look at Kihon, I wanted to leave everyone with one final thought.
Okay, go for it.
We talked a lot about Shingitai, that harmony of spirit, technique, and body. And I think it's such a powerful concept. I think it goes way beyond just martial arts.
For sure. It's like a blueprint for approaching anything you want to achieve with that balance and intention. Here's a little challenge for everyone listening. Think about something you're really passionate about, something you love to be amazing at. It could be anything at all, playing an instrument, writing code, cooking, anything.
Love it.
Now think about how you can use those Shingitai principles in that area. How can you nurture your spirit, your passion, dedication, resilience? How can you refine your technique, those specific skills you need to master it? And how can you take care of your body physically and mentally to support yourself on that path?
It's all about taking that holistic approach, recognizing that real mastery comes from developing every part of yourself.
Exactly. And I think if you embrace those Shingitai principles, you might not only achieve a higher level of mastery, but you might also find a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment on the way.
It's like taking what we learned from Kihon, that dedication and intention, and using it as a guide for life itself.
So thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Kihon. We hope you learned some new things and feel inspired to keep learning and growing.
And until next time, Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
That's all for today's episode. We'll see you on our next deep dive.